Have you ever noticed how some men walk into an expensive restaurant not for the food, but for the attention they hope to receive? How they wear designer brands, drive imported cars, or flaunt luxury watches, not out of pleasure, but out of fear. Fear of going unnoticed, of not being respected, of feeling like they're not enough. The truth is harsh. Many are trying to buy with money what should be earned with presence, character, and authenticity. In this video, we're going to talk about the invisible cost of using money as an emotional shield and the emptiness that remains when the applause fades. We live in an era where masculinity has been hijacked by symbols of status, where many men believe that respect is measured by the size of a bank account, the model of a car, or the brand of a sneaker. It's not just about showing off. It's about a silent and desperate attempt to say to the world, I matter. In this context, money stops being a tool and becomes armor. Armor that shines on the outside, but often hides a deep emptiness within. The problem begins when a man confuses value with price. He doesn't just want to have money. He wants to be admired for having it. He wants to be seen as someone successful, someone who made it. But made it where exactly? Over insecurity? Over a lack of affection? Over a constant feeling of not being enough? Many grow up hearing that a real man provides, commands, has power. And without realizing it, they spend their lives trying to perform that role with their wallet. This distortion creates a dangerous cycle. The more he feels he's not respected for who he is, the more he tries to be respected for what he has. And the more he tries, the further he drifts from his essence. Money becomes a form of camouflage, a way to hide the vulnerability society taught him he can't have. Because admitting insecurity, neediness, or fear is still seen as weakness. And weakness, for many men, is a luxury they can't afford. This constant search for external validation turns a man into a character who calculates every step, every purchase, every social media post as a personal marketing strategy. He's not living. He's trying to prove something. But prove it to whom? To others? To an absent father? To the wounded child still living inside him who never felt like he was enough? And don't think this behavior is limited to the very rich. Even men with few resources can fall into this trap. They buy what they can't afford, take on reckless debt, all to maintain an image of strength and success. It's not luxury, it's desperation. It's not power, it's fear. Fear of not being accepted. Fear of not being man enough. Fear of not being loved. The cruelest part is that this bought respect is fragile. It depends on keeping up the image. It depends on constantly spending, flaunting, performing. It's a respect that vanishes when the money runs out, that evaporates when the applause fades. And what's left then? Just the man in front of the mirror, without an audience, without a stage, asking himself, who am I without all of this? That's the problem we want to address in this video. The illusion that money can fill emotional voids, that wealth can replace authenticity, that status can make up for a lack of identity. This isn't about demonizing money. It's a powerful tool. But when it becomes your only path to feeling worthy, maybe the real issue isn't in your bank account, but in your inner balance. And that's where the real crisis begins. Why do so many men feel the need to prove themselves through money? Perhaps because, at some point in history, we stopped teaching boys that a man's worth lies in his integrity, and began measuring masculinity by the ability to accumulate. Money became more than a resource. It became a metric of manhood. And in the process, many were conditioned to believe that if they're not the strongest, the richest, the most admired, then they are nothing. Masculinity became a silent competition where vulnerability is dismissed as weakness and affection is replaced by transactions. The problem is that when a man believes he'll only be respected if he has financial power, he becomes a prisoner of a cruel logic, the logic of constant performance. He can never stop, never fail, never allow himself to rest. Because if everything that makes him worthy in the eyes of others is tied to what he has, then any loss, no matter how small, becomes a direct threat to his identity. And that corrodes. It corrodes sleep, it corrodes relationships, it corrodes the soul. There's a brutal difference between using money as a tool and using it as identity. A tool serves your mission. An identity, on the other hand, enslaves. A man who defines himself by what he has never feels whole, because there will always be someone with more. And this race with no finish line destroys more than it builds. What was supposed to be a path to freedom turns into a golden prison. What was meant to be an achievement becomes a burden. Here's a truth few are willing to face. Real respect can't be bought. It must be cultivated. And that requires something money can't provide: presence, truth, strength of character. A man can pay for an expensive dinner, but he can't buy genuine admiration. He can shower someone with gifts, but he can't force love. He may even be feared for his success, but he'll never be loved for it. Because the respect that comes from money is superficial. And when everything falls apart, what's left is the man, stripped bare, in front of his own conscience. And that's where true worth is found. You've seen it happen. You might even be living it without realizing. That friend who posts stories from expensive restaurants, but is always paying off his credit card in installments. The co-worker who talks more about the car he drives than about his own ideas. The man who can't hold a deep conversation, but always tries to impress with what he's bought. Deep down, these gestures aren't about pleasure. They're about approval. It's as if every purchase were a disguised plea. See me, admire me, respect me. In relationships, this pattern gets even stronger. Men who try to compensate for emotional absence with gifts. Men who believe providing is enough to love. Men who feel threatened when they're not the main provider. The problem isn't offering. It's using money as a substitute for presence. It's confusing protection with possession, care with control. And that leads to shallow relationships based on exchange, not connection. When money becomes the main language, everything becomes a negotiation, even affection. And on social media, we live in an era of emotional shop windows. Men competing for attention, not with ideas or values, but with photos in luxury hotels, expensive watches, and catchy phrases about success. But what you don't see in the picture is the emptiness off screen, the silence after the likes, the feeling that without the carefully staged setting, there's nothing left to show. And that's when everyday life reveals the truth. We're surrounded by men who seem to be winning, but deep inside are just trying not to fall apart. In the end, money isn't the villain, it's neutral. What turns it into either a prison or a path to freedom is the intention behind its use. When a man uses money to create, to build, to offer value to the world, he grows. But when he uses it to hide, to protect himself, to try to become someone he doesn't yet feel like inside, he only drifts further from himself. True masculine strength doesn't lie in how much you can accumulate, but in how much you can sustain yourself without needing applause. Real respect can't be imposed through wealth. It's earned through authenticity. And the greatest sign of both financial and emotional maturity a man can show is not needing money to feel like he matters. Because the world can take everything from you, except who you are. And if you still feel the need to buy respect, maybe what's missing isn't money, but identity. Something only you can build, from the inside out. If this reflection stirred something in you, challenged you, or made you think differently, then this channel is for you. Here, we do talk about money, but we do it to understand the soul behind the choices. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and join us on this journey of awareness, masculinity, and freedom. Because true wealth starts in the mind, and only then in the pocket.